Good morning friends, welcome back to lectures on soft skills. In the previous lecture we talked about group communication, and in this lecture we are going to talk about leadership. Now while talking about group communication, we saw that when you formulate a group, at times the group is confused. The group does not know much about the ways the members should follow in order to find a solution or in order to reach a consensus. As group members, they also feel that there are differences and they are not able to find out the solution of the problem. It is here that the role of leaders becomes important. Now the question that you may all come across is, who is a leader? If somebody asks you a question, who is a leader? Suddenly on a mental map so many faces appear, and all these faces that appear on your mental map are those of political leaders. But remember friends, you are to belong to organization, you are to work in various capacities, and one of the capacity also is of being a leader. So you will find that if you belong to a particular group, there will be one person who will be the leader of that group. At times people also think, and we at times use manager also as leaders. We have to understand the difference between a manager and a leader. Now who is a leader? What actually are the capabilities that are required for somebody to be a leader? And if in an organization you are assigned the task of leading a team, or people try to find out who a leader is, because not every now and then leaders are decided, but then whatever capacity you are having, at times you may be asked to have the responsibility of leading a team. But the question is how to lead the team successfully, how to be a real leader so that everything goes off well. Do you really think that a leader may have certain other traits other than what a common human being can have? Let me tell you a very small episode that I came across and how this problem had the solution. It was actually an air journey. I had to deliver a talk in one of the premier institutes of India, that is Jabalpur. Yes, it was Jabalpur. I was traveling by a plane to Jabalpur, but then because of some problem or the other, the flight had to land at Bhopal. It was the same day when I had to take a session in the afternoon, and it was 11 AM when the flight finally landed at Bhopal. Like others, I was also confused what to do, because my lecture had to be delivered at 3 PM. All the other people, all the other passengers, they were also in a very confused state of mind, because somebody had to go for an admission, somebody had to go to see their ailing relatives. Now all of us were confused. I decided that I will just give a call to the director of the institute, but then what about others? Suddenly I see that one of the persons from this lot of passengers, he was actually trying to talk to an officer of that airport, and no amicable solution was on the way. He then talked to the passengers, and he had only one suggestion, that you have to be with me and I will see how we can find out a solution, because all of us have to go to Jabalpur. And this man came forward, he talked to the airport authorities, and then he also tried to talk to the people at Delhi, and finally all of us were waiting. Then after 1 hour the man came out and the solution was found, and the solution was that the airport authorities will provide or find out an alternative to send all the passengers to Jabalpur, and this became possible only because of that person, who didn't look like a very influential one, but an ordinary person. But then the way he spoke, the way he organized, the way he was committed, finally helped us all come across a solution, and we reached Jabalpur by night. Now what I am trying to make you understand is that a leader is not somebody who comes from heaven, but he is from us, among us. He simply has to have certain qualities. Now if a leader is a person among us, of course he might have certain qualities in him. What are these qualities? Let us have a look at the traits of a leader. A leader, do you think that a leader should be intelligent? Should he have a charisma? Should he have decisiveness? Should he have a sort of enthusiasm, strength, bravery, integrity and self-confidence? Now these are some of the traits, but then all of you have to be in an organization. Your leadership will have from time to time different sorts of expectations. That is why it becomes quite essential to understand what actually are the traits, what actually are the characteristics of a leader. Now let me again take you back to the problem. We are all stuck in a problem, but then there came a person who initiated the process. So initiate, somebody has to initiate, and then it was not only because of his own interest, but then he also took into consideration the interests of other party. I mean, he had a desire to lead, he had a desire to lead, so he decided that he should be of some help. And the person, devoid of all his self-interests, he was quite honest, he didn't ask for anything other than the cooperation of the members. And then he knew, unless and until you know about a problem, you cannot take the initiative. So as a leader, one has to have certain characteristics. The first is initiative, the desire to lead, honesty, integrity, strength, and of course the subject knowledge, which is very important. Subject knowledge, which is very important. He knew the entire issue, and then finally he decided that he will be of some help. Now there are different ways, there are different styles of leaders. Initially you will have to work under some leaders, maybe in course of time others will work under your leadership, but it is very important here to understand the different types of leaderships. First is autocratic, because if somebody is appointed a leader, people may have different sorts of behavior. So one of the style of leadership can be autocratic. Such a person or such a leader, what he will do is, he actually will work according to his own ideas, according to, of course, he has to lead a group, he understands the problem, but he simply believes that whatever action he takes, that only are the genuine actions, and that can only help him come out of the situation, or that can help him take a solution. So there can be an autocratic style, but people having such style, autocratic style, they are not considered to be a good leader, because such a leader does not have any interest in your problems. And when you are in problems, are you in a position to work better? Of course not. So what you require is a sort of democratic leader. Democratic. Who is a democratic leader? A democratic leader or a democratic style of leadership is one where he takes into consideration the interests of other people in the group, he looks at the situation, he also takes the suggestion of group members and finally comes to a solution. But such a sort of leader involves everyone. He involves everyone, he looks at all the pros and cons of the problem, and then also sees to it that the solution taken in such a manner is acceptable to everyone. Then there is another sort of leader whom we can call laissez-faire. Laissez-faire, such a person, if you are working in a group, as an individual you will find that you should not have that much of interference. Every individual wants that. But then unless and until you are asked to, because in the beginning you do not know what you have to do and how to do it. So, but then if you have been given an autonomy and if you feel that nobody should interfere with your business, now such a leaders are also there who will not interrupt in whatever you are doing. Such a sort of style is called laissez-faire style. Laissez-faire style. Here your autonomy, you have entire autonomy, and this autonomy nobody is going to, and the leader is not going to intervene. And then we have transformational and transactional leader. Now think of some people who have actually been very famous for their leadership styles, and you will have many such examples. There are leaders who have been democratic, there are leaders who have been autocratic, there are leaders who have been following this laissez-faire style. But then all we require at times also is a leader who can transform, I mean, there are two more terms, one is transform and transact. A leader who transacts, he simply guides, he assigns you the task. But a leader who believes in transforming, he actually goes beyond his own role, because he sees a new tomorrow ahead. Then there are different dimensions of leadership behavior. The first is initiating structure. Members who are under a leader who actually initiates a structure finds that work relationship and goals, they are actually together. He tries to assimilate the work relationship and goals. He will provide you the tasks, and he expects his workers or team members to maintain some standard of performance, and he believes that the deadlines have to be met. I mean, if he gives you a deadline, he actually believes and he expects rather that this deadline has to be met. So this is one of the leadership behaviors which we call initiating structure. Now in initiating structure, the leader may not look into the personal problems of the members, team members, group members, But then there is another part of this behavior, which is consideration. In such a situation, the leader sees to it that there is a creation of mutual trust between him and the team members, and he respects the ideas and feelings of team members. He also sees to it that he maintains concerns, he is concerned about his team members, and at times he also sees that they are having comfort, and he also feels for the well-being of his employees. Now, once you are in organization, you will come across leaders, and at times there may be a mix of both structure, initiating structure and consideration. It has been said, it has been found out, discovered through researchers, that a leader who is high on the structure, high on the consideration, he is in a way instrumental in bringing change in the team. He is also responsible, or the results have shown that such a sort of leadership or such a behavior of leadership has resulted in better products, in better solutions. But in certain cases, it has also been found that if the leader is more concerned about the problems of his employees, at times this has also led to some amount of absenteeism, which can hamper the growth of the team, hamper the growth of the organization. We can also have a look at the Felder model, where Fred Felder gave a model, and he said that the effectiveness of a leader depended upon the LPC. This LPC is low participation of, or some member who actually, there are, at times leaders do not want to work with people who are not faithful to him. If you have a co-worker who is actually showing signs of ennui and boredom and at all, naturally you at times develop a sort of disinterest, and that may actually cause heavily to the organization. But then effective group performance, according to Felder model, depended on the proper match between the leader's style of interacting with employees and the degree to which the situation gives control and influence to the leader. So, if you have a low performing co-worker, naturally you come across two things. First is, either you believe that you have to be task oriented or you have to be relationship oriented, because in such a sort of model, what you say about others tells more about you, meaning thereby, Felder says that the leadership is always fixed, and an individual's leadership style is always fixed, that is, it is either relationship oriented or task oriented. Now you have to decide, and you will find whether your leader is task oriented or relationship oriented. Now there is another danger. If the leader is relationship oriented, the organization has to cost heavily, because he will be more concerned about the relationship and the task factor will be ignored. So this Felder model came across this conclusion that leadership is always fixed, and it is always relationship oriented or task oriented. But then in modern days, when you are living in a world which is controlled by technology, which is also controlled by virtual teams and all, there are certain approaches which are emerging. And what are these emerging approaches? The first is, your leader may have a sort of charisma. I mean, the leader may follow a sort of theory which we call charismatic theory. Now, in such a theory, or people who are following such a sort of behavior, I mean charismatic leaders, such leaders, there are certain qualities and which are, they have certain attributes which are very heroic. They have some extraordinary qualities. So followers of such a leader attribute some heroic capabilities in the leader, and such leaders exhibit more commitment, and they also go beyond. I mean, their task is, they are leading no doubt, but at the same time they feel that they are agents of radical change. They will bring out a change the way things are happening. Such leaders are found in politics, religion, or business firms. Now, if you have a leader who has got a charismatic effect, you will find that he comes above his petty considerations of self, and he tries to provide you a sort of vision. And this vision, most of us remember many political leaders who have got not only the charisma, but with the help of their charisma they try to show their vision, and for that they go an extra mile. They have certain qualities which are, they are very much confident of their own potential. They have a vision, the vision of tomorrow, you know, one who can foresee what is going to happen, and that is possible only with a leader who has got a charismatic style. He always thinks ahead of time, and he also has the ability to articulate the vision, and he is very much confident. That is why he has a sort of conviction that he will be able to follow his vision, and for that he actually explains his vision to the team members. Such a leader is participative. He involves his team members, and his behavior is also very extraordinary. He may not have the traits of an autocratic leader who simply believes that the task has to be completed by any means. Such a leader, I mean such a charismatic leader, are considered as pioneers of great change in the world. And not only this, such people are also aware of environmental concerns. I mean, he thinks of a problem that are going to problem which can emerge in the near future, but then he also thinks of a solution. So a charismatic leader is often more effective, and it is actually the dying need of our today. And then let us have a look at one of the observations about the visionary leadership, because it is the visionary leadership that is on the anvil nowadays. A vision has a clear and compelling imagery that offers an innovative way to improve. In our India today, we also find a person who is actually having a lot of vision about what is going to happen, and for that he has different, you know, solutions in his mind, but then he is convinced about his own action and his own ideas that it may bring a great change. So such a vision recognizes and draws on traditions, connects to actions that people can take to realize change. So one you know, and any policy that may be devised, any action that may be thought of, so that may be thought of in terms of the challenges of the future. Vision taps people's energies and emotions. If it is properly articulated, I mean if the vision is properly explained and executed, a vision creates enthusiasm that people have for sporting events and even leisure time activities, bringing this energy and commitment to the workplace. Now, by having seen such a sort of observation by a management journal about visionary leadership, all of us think that we should have a sort of visionary leader before us. Now, what actually can the visionary leader do? He will explain the vision, whatever vision he has, he will explain the vision. He will not keep people in dark, he will not have a hidden agenda. You know, he is above his self-interest, and he will express the vision not only through his behavior, not only through his emotion, but also through his action, and extend the vision to different contexts. I mean connectivity, that he will have to think how he will make it possible, how he will make every vision possible, so that he can tell people what will be the impact of such a vision in the near future. Next is, if we have a visionary leader, of course this visionary leader can be transformational, and so it is here that we should understand the difference between transactional versus transformational leadership. A transactional leader, as I have said earlier, he will guide his followers towards established goals by telling them their roles and task requirements. He will tell them what are their roles, and he will also tell them, in order to perform that role, what is the requirement. But a transformational leader is one step ahead of a transactional leader. He will inspire their followers to transcend their self-interest. You know, there cannot be any transformation unless and until we are free from our self-vested interests. So at times you may have to sacrifice your self-interest for the good of the organization, and this can only be done by a transformational leader who will instill in you the courage to move above your self-interest and be capable of having a profound and extraordinary effect on followers. But remember, whatever leader you have, whether it is a transactional, transformational, a democratic, autocratic, but then leadership also varies from one culture to another. Let us also try to understand, because nowadays you do not have to work only in one culture. Cultures are changing, and the workplaces have become a multicultural workplace, multicultural force. Hence, we need to understand what are the basic differences, some of them, though we have already talked about it while discussing communication and culture. So, Korean leaders are often more paternalistic. They show that they are your mentor, they are your protege. So, Korean leaders, they are more paternalistic. But when it comes to leaders from the Arabian countries, and in them a sort of strictness is there. So, if there comes a sign of generosity or kindness, that is considered as the weakness in the leadership style. Hence, the leaders in such cultures, especially in Arab cultures, have to be very strict. Japanese leaders, they are very humble and they will speak less. But leaders in Scandinavia and Dutch, they are supposed not to praise individuals in public. Even if somebody has done a very good job, it has to be taken into consideration though, but then praising somebody individually in public is considered impolite in terms of leadership practiced in Scandinavia and Dutch. Americans, they often talk about responsibilities. They may have at times some sort of rationality, but then they value orientation. They have a sort of hedonism, and you may at times not know what is to come later. So, these are some of the differences. The world, as we have been saying in several lectures, is a junction of people from different cultures, and these people have different faiths, hence their leadership style also will be different. But then, since we are going to work in a globalized world, we have to practice some amount of caution, and you will feel whether you are in a group, you are in a team, whether you are going to lead the team. But let us try to understand what is actually the essence of an effective leader, and the hallmark in this regard is the element of trust. Any leader who wants to be effective, any leader who tries or who wants to be recognized has to show a greater level of trust in his employees. But then, as a leader also, in order to show this trust, there are certain things that we should possess. What are those? First is integrity. When we talk about integrity, we actually mean honesty, we actually mean a sort of transparency. What we say and what we act, there has to be a sort of match between the two. If as a leader you maintain that integrity, your team members will trust you better. Moreover, every group member wants that his leader has to be competent. So when you talk about competence, competence in terms of the subject knowledge, the knowledge of the problem that is there, that is why we find that a leader who is appointed a leader or who is established as a leader had something more than us, as we have said earlier. So he should be a person not only of integrity, but a person who has got immense knowledge. It has always been seen that we respect people having more knowledge. We respect people who actually do not have a sort of double dealing. I mean, people with dual face cannot receive the appreciation as compared with a person who has got a sort of integrity. Then as members of the group, we also expect that the action of the leader has to have a sort of consistency. So consistency is very important. I mean, not that an action taken with one person is different from an action taken about other person, if the nature of the complaint, if the nature of the problem is one. So as group members, we expect that our leaders should show the sort of consistency which is required. And then loyalty. A leader has to have an amount of self-sacrifice, and he should have a loyalty. Loyalty not only to the organization, but loyalty also should be exhibited while dealing with his co-workers. Loyalty also when we are representing the problem of our co-workers, when we are talking about the interest of our co-workers, I mean, you always feel great, you always feel strong when your leader represents your case and represents it very assertively. And then a leader also should practice a great amount of openness. I mean, candidness is the hallmark. So whatever you say, whatever your policies are, and if the leader expects that he requires the cooperation of all the members, he has to explain the problem in a very candid, in a very lucid manner. It has always been seen that if you become an epitome of trust, if you become an epitome of integrity, honesty, politeness, competence, consistency, loyalty, candidness, you will get more respect, because you know the hidden aspects of a person's personality are going to damage, and they at times create gaps, they at times create misunderstandings. It is a leader is just like a person who actually gives the direction. All of us, I mean all the members of a group, they are actually the passengers. It is actually the leader, it is actually the sailor who tries to guide the ship in the right direction. If we have to have a successful project, that is possible only because we have a successful leader. Only because the leader not only has got the initiative, not only has got the drive, not only practices a democratic behavior, but also influences by his creative, constructive views, suggestions and guides in or during hours of crisis. Let us try to sum up by quoting from Warren E. Bennis, who says, leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Now, having said this, let us ask yourself the question that often comes into mind: are leaders born or do leaders become? That is actually the question that will keep haunting your minds. Leaders are born because leaders come from us, among us, but leaders are made because of their qualities. While we discuss group discussions, we'll find how leaders emerge, leaders evolve, and leaders establish themselves through their constructive ways, through their amicable nature, through their trust, through their cooperation and through their. Till then, please be committed towards the question, and we look forward to getting the answer in the next lecture. Thank you very much.